Hi, Matt Stait again from the Festival of Martial Arts. And today I have with me Brett Mackenzie. Hi, Brett. How are you?
Yeah, hello there. I'm good, thanks.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks for coming along and chatting today. And thanks for being part of the festival itself. So I always start these the same way. And I ask, can you give us a brief overview of your history, who you are, what it is that you do for people that may not have heard of you?
Okay, then I'll try and keep it as brief as possible. I'm getting on a bit now. I've been in the martial arts circles for quite a few years, and I've done all the usual. You start off, you do the karate, because in my day, all there was karate and judo and Muay Thai. So I never really fancied the judo thing, but I got into the karate when I was about 12, done that for about 2 or 3 years, joined the army, had a bit of a break. When I left the army, I got back into karate, Muay Thai, and powerlifting, which is an interesting mixture. I also done quite a lot of door work, and that's where I started getting more interested in the self-defense, because my karate instructor was a pretty old school doorman, and his karate was always very streetwise. It wasn't, follow the syllabus to the lines. And that kind of got me interested. I became a professional karate instructor, and I used to teach at a club for quite a few years. Done the Muay Thai circuit, and then the hips failed me. I was getting to about 40, and I was doing the lessons, and it took me about 2 days after a lesson just to walk properly. I was just hunched over. I said, well, this is no good. So I kind of looked at other things, and Krav Maga started coming up. And we're talking about, 10, 15 years, about 15 years ago. And, that had only just started appearing in the area. And my nearest Krav Maga club was an hour and a half away. So I used to have to go an hour and a half there and back just to go to a lesson. I'd done that for a little while. Then I kind of bumped into a Kapap instructor in the Norwich area. And that's how I kind of got involved in Kapap with Sam Markey, Avi Nadia. Now I've gotten to that. I'm actually a level 4 in Kapap, and I've got a 3rd dan in Israeli Jiu-Jitsu, and I'm also a 5th dan in Lightning Scientific Arni. So I've been quite busy. I studied Japanese sword. I'm only a beginner. Been doing it about 3 or 4 years. That still classed as a beginner in that game. And I really quite into 52 blocks, which is your jailhouse boxing at the moment. So that's kind of where I am. Obviously, I've got a lot of door experience, so I like to keep things very practical. So
yeah, so that's a wide and varied level of experience there. And with the military background and the old school karate background, it's no wonder your hips and knees are shot. That's all I'm going to say to that.
I'm also a firearms instructor. I forgot to put that one in.
Okay, yeah, that as well. All right, so let's start there then, because that's an interesting conversation to be had in and around firearms and martial arts, because there's a camp that says that martial arts shouldn't have firearms in it, and then there's another camp that says firearms training is just a form of martial arts. So where do you sit in that sort of conversation?
The reason I got into firearms is, one, because I'm also an ex-rifleman, British Army, and I was also a sniper. So that's something I was interested in. When I got into the Kapap system, I saw firearms disarming. I thought, well, this is interesting. So I kind of getting followed into this, but I started seeing on the scene a lot of people playing around with pistols and weapons and not actually knowing anything about them. Why are you mucking around with pistols and firearms? You don't even have to take a magazine out. You don't have to clear, you don't have to clear malfunction. So one thing I've always learned with the Avi Nadia Academy is be really thorough. So I decided to go and spend quite a few years training with a master of firearms in Serbia. And yeah, I'm going out there about 5, 6 times a year, a week at a time, and working really hard. I mean, I had the privilege of working with Master Shirko, and he's a fantastic shooter. And one thing we learn is that when you see people, they get all the tactical beard, want to be John Wick for the day, with shots to the firearms. Now, you can be as tactical as you want, but if you can't hit the target, that means nothing. So focused a lot on time on precision shooting, competition shooting, handling, being very safe, and then obviously worked on the tactical stuff and the concealed carry stuff. I've been doing that for quite a few years, and I've actually got back into the military. So I'm kind of back into the Army Cadet Force. It's not full-time army or anything like that, but I want to bring something back to the kids. So as I say, that if you want to mess around with firearms, then at least learn how to handle them safely, is all I've got to say. It's not a big thing in the UK, but if you get into close protection work, dealing with those kind of circles, that's where I'd recommend getting involved in the firearms. It's pretty pointless generally as a civilian, but if you're a combatives instructor and you're hanging around CP people, which I know quite a lot, I've worked in those circles, that's kind of important. If not, you know what I mean, just teach people how to box and, you know, whatever. Keep away from it unless you're really serious about it and you've got a purpose in actually learning it. Is that fair?
Yeah. I think that's a very fair analysis. It's one of those that, you know, like yourself, as you know, we've known each other a very long time on and off through again through the Kapapa days and things like that. And that was always something that struck me is because I worked in close protection again, as you know, I worked in security, and I was often asked about doing work abroad in various places in various countries, and I for the most part said no, because that's not my experience. And I always find it fascinating when you talk about the disarms in martial arts and that sort of thing, when the vast majority of people have no clue how to handle weaponry, and I include myself in this as well, by the way. So, So yeah, it's an interesting thing. But then on the other side of the coin, I suppose you could rightly argue that it is a problem that seems to be growing, and there does seem to be more and more need for an awareness, not necessarily sort of disarms and things like that, but an awareness of those kind of situations. And so, you know, I suppose
I see that. I know where you're coming from, and obviously when you're talking about things like the Paris attack on the train, and if you understand things like how these weapons work, frailties, closing people down, a lot of people also don't understand that it's how easy it is to get somebody to miss a shot when you put them under pressure. If you do a lot of competition shooting, then I know that people don't understand this. You point, the target moves, the pistol handle move, but your eyes don't. And you can actually force a lot of errors in shooting and pressure. People just lose it. They're not looking down the sight. So that's why it's always really important to learn proper, solid marksman skills. So that's the line there. But yeah, there are certain threats. They're absolutely tiny. I mean, luckily enough on that train, there were some military people who were on that train and had the balls just to close it down. Yeah, you know what I mean? Knife far away, firearms close as possible. If not, you haven't got a chance. So they closed it down. Man in the gun, flapped, weapon failed to fire, too slow to clear it, too slow to go to the secondary. They were on him. So, but that's again for CP people, military people. But
I
mean, I teach it for fun anyway. So
I mean, the odds of us actually facing something like that are, fortunately, here in the UK, still incredibly slim. And you know, we see the headlines sometimes, and occasionally we sort of panic a little bit more than we should, I think. So moving on from that, then you talked about 52 blocks, which again is something that some people may have heard of, but a lot of people really don't know much about it, including myself. I mean, I've heard of it, but I've never really encountered it. So can you give us an overview of what that is?
Right. Okay. It's basically jailhouse boxing that came from the American penal system, basically black boxing. And what happened is basically in the 60s, 70s, 80s that, you know, and the guys had to do their jail time. It was just a matter of course, low opportunity. They went to jail and they learned this kind of unusual boxing system that is designed to work in confined spaces with multiples and against people with knives, razors, lots of naughty criminal tactics. And they modified the boxing to kind of be much more street savvy. But also in the days, they used to use them for robberies and heists, you know, like payroll heists, all this. So it comes from a criminal side of boxing. Now it's kind of more of a general thing. You don't have to be a criminal to study it. It's all built, some of it is built around rap music, all that kind of stuff. I can't dance, that's not my thing. I'm more into the boxing side of it, but it's good fun. It gives it kind of a different edge, especially if you got a lot of martial arts people who teach boxing but haven't actually been coached properly. So you'll see a lot of people, you see a lot of Krav Maga people, all this kind of thing, and you look at the box and you go, yeah, you know, they haven't really been coached. They don't want to do boxing, but it's kind of like a mixture of like martial arts and boxing. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, it doesn't help, but yeah. So is there a lineage to this? Is this something where there's a set system, a syllabus, or are different people have different takes on it?
There are different people out there. I mean, Sensei Mo is probably the most well-known one because he's in the TV. But I follow a guy called Light Burley. And with Light Burley, the reason I follow him is he goes out and he spars with everyone. He will just go out and spar constantly. All the others, you don't see them do that. He's actually, if anyone says blah, 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 all right, get your gloves on, let's meet up. And he will spar with them. And he has got, if you go to lightburley.com, he has got certain packages you can learn from there, online learning. There's an advanced group, but even better, there's me and David Wells in the UK. So, you know, I mean, if you want to kind of do, you can only learn so much from a video, can't you? So, yeah, but yeah, you can learn that from me, David Wells, Tommy Moore. He kind of gets involved in it a little bit too. So, yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. It's an interesting subject because it's one that it's a little bit off the radar for a lot of people in the sense that, you know, we all understand the concept of karate, even if we don't do karate. We've seen it on the television, you know, we've seen video of it. And the representation of 52 blocks, as you say, is essentially criminality. And although it's been called that in a couple of movies, you know, how if somebody wanted to actually look at say 52 blocks themselves, is there somewhere you could point them other than the chap you just mentioned? Is there a movie of that style as an example?
Oh, well, we're hitting on to that, aren't we? Creed 3 came out. And if you look at the bad guy in it, apparently he's using like cross-blocking. Right. It's been certain things that we spoke to Light Burley about, and he said that is good. They're trying to bring some 52 in there, but they need to be coached properly.
Right.
So but you see old school George Foreman cross-blocking. So that was coming into it. Yeah, I haven't seen it myself, but that's on my list to go and have a look from what I heard at the weekend. But there are kind of things that are into it. I need to actually watch it, but there are some 52 blocks actually brought into it. Oh, and apparently Wesley Snipes, he's a 52er.
Okay.
Yeah, right. So some of his stuff is 52 blocks. So
right. Yeah, because
it's kind of unknown, but the thing is, I like unknown stuff. I don't like mainstream. Mainstream bores me. You know what I mean? When I started Krav Maga, I had to go to Colchester. Now there's like a pop-up Krav Maga club in every town. Same with BJJ. No, I've got 3 BJJ clubs in this city now. You know what I mean? All varying about my BJJ is better than yours. And you know, just all that kind of nonsense all the while. So I just kind of keep away from it. So I kind of like to find something a bit quirky and interesting. It's the same with the Lightning Arnice. You know, I mean, who's heard of Lightning Arnice? You know, you might have heard of Arnice, you might have heard of Callie or a Screamer. But again, very different. I
Mm.
like doing different things. I like doing quirky stuff. So again, no one really heard of Kapap. So everyone thinks, Krav Maga was Kapap. Yeah, you know what I mean? So
yeah. Well, it's a moment in time, isn't it? Because you know, BJJ, Kapap as well is a good example. All of these things at one point they were very rare. They were very hard to find here in the UK, and
you had to travel.
yeah, and you had to travel to get it. You know, and we're now in a world where, as you mentioned, there's schools on every corner of all different types, and it's
Varying
so
quality.
easily accessible as well. You know, yeah, the quality obviously differs between things, but it's very, very accessible, and I don't think the younger generation sort of understand that. So, you know, so finding something that's out of the norm and a bit different takes a little bit of work, and we're all more inclined.
Absolutely.
You know, we're all kind of more inclined to go to what's local and easy, aren't we, for the
Yeah.
most part? So
I'm not a lazy student. If I think it's worthwhile, I will go and do that. You know, most people these days, if it's not around the corner, they don't do it. So
yeah,
you know, I'm not a lazy student. I put the work in. It's just how I am. You know what I mean? That always the good stuff is always the one you have to look up the most, isn't it?
oh
So
yeah, again, I think we're of that
research.
generation where you know, it was completely normal to get in the car for a couple of hours and drive more than the actual training time. You
Yeah.
know, by the time you got there and back, and
Absolutely.
that was just the way things were. I think that it's a little different now. But so that brings us on then to the festival itself, because one of the great things about the festival is that we've got a lot of really good people all coming together, showcasing what it is that they're doing. And so when we talk about people having to travel a long way to get to see all these different things, hopefully it's all going to be under one roof, in, to use the term roof, even though we haven't got one. And so what is it that you're looking to be doing at the festival?
Well, as I say, I'm going to go and teach a little bit of 52 blocks. So, you know, and we'll go through a few basic shapes, a little bit of footwork. What's it, an hour? So I'll just try and squeeze in something useful for now. Hopefully they'll get people interested to want to learn from it. So yeah, that's what I thought about it. It'll be a bit of fun, quite light-hearted. If you like your box and if you like your stand-up, if you just kind of want to see some slight tweaks on that, then you know what I mean, that's what my plan is.
No, fantastic. Yeah, because again, it's one of those where the idea is that people get to sort of dip their toe, if you like, into things they wouldn't normally have a go at, and
Absolutely.
and come away with something useful. And where you said that it's you know, it takes sort of flavors from other things, but it's its thing all of its own. You know, that sounds like that might be really sort of compatible with people's existing toolboxes, if you like, and they can go, oh well, as you mentioned, that sort of cross block thing. It might be that they're like, actually, that's really useful. I'm going to take that back.
Absolutely, it's very useful. So some of the things, some of the blocks, covers, they come from box, and mainly old school, really old school boxes, and you find them useful, especially in the terms of self-defense, because we always go through the term of make and miss, make and pay. If you've got good defensive boxing skills, then that's going to suit you very well working on the doors or any form of self-defense. Because, you know, I mean, at most occasions in self-defense, you're on the back foot, unless you're lucky enough to catch them on proactive. But yeah, you know, that defensive skill, tightening things up, making it really hard to hit, and I'll break your hands. You know, it's designed to break people's hands, break that capability you're fighting. I also add a bit of bare knuckle pugilism into it, because you know what I mean, how many fights in the street you seen where people put boxing gloves on? None. And if you're not used to hitting hard, solid things, you get to break your hands, break your wrists. As you know, working on the doormat, how many broken hands have we seen in our time? Lots.
Yeah, mine are kind of ruined from that.
Yeah.
So absolutely. So how can people reach you if they want to get in contact with you in the meantime?
Okay, well, probably the best place is visit my Facebook page, which is Viking Combatives, or my website, which is vikingselfdefense.co.uk, you know, a little bit more tactical on the domain. I'm actually a web designer by trade, so you're marketer. So I know all the little tricks anyway. So yeah, so vikingselfdefense.co.uk, or go to my Facebook page, Viking Combatives.
Fabulous. Okay. I will put that in the description as well, so that people can go straight from there. So thank you ever so much for coming and chatting today. It's been great, and we're really looking forward to seeing you at the festival itself.
You're welcome, and thank you very much for asking me.
My pleasure.